There are a couple stages in scenario one between Chris and his partner. Chris was not attentive in this conversation. Instead, his attention was elsewhere on his phone. He was not interpreting her words correctly. She meant soon as possible, where he thought maybe he had a bunch of time before then. So those were probably weak. Receiving was definitely weak as well, because he didn't receive the message he was hoping to receive because he wasn't paying attention. The issue here between hearing or listening was more of listening. He definitely heard what she had said, but he wasn't listening to the tone she was speaking in, how urgent it was, or how important it must have been at that moment, since he was paying attention to his phone. Active listening could have changed the outcome by him knowing that he could be asking questions about when the move-in did come along, he wouldn't be so surprised, and he would actually have information about the situation rather than just being like, yeah, okay, and not asking any questions or actually listening to what their needs are. Although Maya may have felt she was listening, she wasn't actively listening. She didn't ask any questions or didn't respond. She didn't use any recall. Listening challenges. Instead, she was using defensive listening by saying quickly that she was listening. She insisted she was listening. By doing this, we are missing the fact that she's not listening to she's focusing on the wrong thing. She's not focusing on what her partner feels. She's focusing on defending herself and moving on from the topic when her partner had just expressed something that was very important to her. This conversational turn-taking can affect emotional safety by making her partner feel like her feelings aren't valid and that she has no space to share what she actually feels in this certain situation or in any situation in the near future, because her partner doesn't care or isn't listening to her. In section 3, based on the scenario, I'd be using the action listening styles by constantly needing to bring up solutions rather than understanding that this person wants more of an emotional connection, not just the solution. They want to be emotional in that second. My friend needed a listening style that was more relational oriented and prioritized emotional connection. Mismatched styles create tension because we're both not getting what we want to give at this situation. In this scenario, I want to help, but it's obvious that you don't want my help, but you just want to be comforted, and it's obvious that I can't give you what you want in that moment. So it creates a lot of tension and could create relational strains by the other person not wanting to talk about their issues with you anymore if they're not getting what they want after it. I definitely do default to action listening styles in order to fix the problem, fix the solution, rather than just being more relational. But I've been definitely working on being more relational about it and not providing solutions, because everyone knows solutions sometimes. No one really wants solutions unless they're in like they're in a spot that needs solutions. You know? In this scenario, the person is using narcissistic listening and listening bias in order to also defensive listening in order to defend themselves, redirect attention to themselves, and also selective listening to the parts of the conversation that only apply to them in order to defend themselves and to redirect attention to themselves and to interpret words into what they want to interpret it as. They don't want to actually hear their partner. They don't want to actually talk to their partner. They want to defend themselves and then end the issue. This interrupting can escalate conflict by making people raise voices to be heard more, or it might start an argument. The other person might become defensive because that person is defensive, so now they go into reset mode. Their body goes into protective mode. I definitely struggle with defensiveness sometimes. Over the years, I have gotten better at least recognizing it and apologizing immediately as soon as the no I comes out, because then I'm like, okay, I'm not hearing them. I'm just being defensive, you know? So yeah. They did really well in letting them know that they care about their situation but want to fully be in the mindset and headspace to take on what exactly they're putting down, because situations can resolve in more conflict if people aren't in the right headspace at the time. Like if someone's already stressed out, they're automatically going to go into attack mode. It's like, no, they're not going to take things lightly if they're already exhausted. So first, I knew how they were going to react in that situation had they have gone and talked about what was being said at that very moment, and they took it to be like, hey, I want to let you know that I'm not in the right headspace. I want to respond to you correctly, so we're going to move on and talk about this later. This is different from avoidance because they're actually not avoiding any problems. They are noticing themselves. They aren't avoiding the feelings that they have themselves in that moment. They're acknowledging the feelings they have. They're acknowledging the feelings the other person have. They're acknowledging that this conversation can't go any further unless I have time to wind down. And it's definitely different from avoidance because they're not avoiding the conversation. They're merely postponing it so that they can be in the right headspace to have that conversation. And they actually follow through. So that's like a big point. Metacommunication plays a role in this because they're talking about a conversation they will have in the future and communicating their feelings at the moment so that the conversation later can be addressed properly. This is a example of empathetic listening, using empathy and also allowing for a safe space for their friend to communicate with them. This response is effective because it does not quickly like go and skip over their feelings, but it acknowledges them and allows them to live in their feelings in that moment rather than just skipping to a solution, trying to basically like erase all the feelings they feel in that moment because it'll be better later on, even though it doesn't feel that way at the moment. Mirroring and paraphrasing can strengthen this moment by allowing them to know that they actually heard the conversation. Yes, saying like, oh, that sounds lonely or whatever, does make it seem like it makes you feel better, but it doesn't show the person that they were actually listening, that they know exactly why it's lonely, why they're exhausted, and they don't let them know why they're happy that they told them.